Hi there. In my continuing endeavor to be a resource of useful information on schizophrenia and how to get over it or deal with it and live with it, you have to take antipsychotic medication. And these recent posts about there being a treatment available now for previously, before it, a permanent side effect from antipsychotic medication treatment uh, that burned as you take it. It covered up the damage it did, burning away the tips of the finger nerves controlling the fingertips and the toes, the extremities, and down the ankles and down the wrists. And it was I knew it as a nerve shave in the old days when I was still psychotic, but it covers up the damage it does. So I was content for many decades, for 25 years, after getting on second generation antipsychotic, which covers up the damage it does, but just does less damage, far less than uh, of a rate or pace of continued damage than the original neurologist told me in 1985. Yeah, you had enough thorazine to whatever the generic name is for that be what was brand name in the day, I guess. So that caused this disorder, tardive dyskinesia. So now there's a treatment for it where it's not permanent, and I still need some more medication for this, a higher dose. I'm thinking to be completely titrated is the medical word, uh, but optimized. So, but anyway, so this was the fear of this nerve damage being done to me in the 1970s and early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, mid till mid 90s when I got the antipsychotic second generation, and I was cured from the psychosis by it, which previous generations of medication wouldn't do. Okay, so but then I covered up the damage that was done to my nervous system, and I was able to function anyway, but to the degree I was, which was minimized early on. It's all skewed the way my life went because of the schizophrenia at the age of 17, and developing, and then it was like 37 when I come out of it on a medication where I knew what reality was again. It tricks you into confusion by hallucinations and delusions that become reality, replace reality in your mind when you have this disease, I guess it is, or illness or disorder, whatever it's categorized as. It's a disease, a medical condition, because it responds to medication. But they haven't made the right medication to do this without causing this kind of nerve damage to your fingers. You know, so it occurs at a slow rate on newer generation drugs, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't Newer people don't have to worry about it, but older people like me who've been fed the older drugs, have more of a worry about benefit from this kind of treatment, these newer drugs that treat this extremity treatment, your fingers moving, the steadiness and sureness of your grip in your hand, and your strength, and down your arms and legs and on your feet, ability to move around and stuff is all noted. My handwriting is what fantastic control, and it's not perfect yet. I'm not done being titrated yet, but it was beautiful writing when I was unmedicated entirely in the hospital. I'd take two pens in my hand and write on paper dual lines, so flaringly beautiful writing, but it was psychotic, But I was totally unmedicated in the hospital. That's the only place you can stay unmedicated to do such a thing for your protection. But so so anyway, the fear of this this tardive dyskinesia, damage in the 70s and 80s and mid 80s was what fueled the furor and the war against any treatment whatsoever. So people who knew me then, if you can accept this, is reality, and you can research it and look up tardive dyskinesia. Google it. I mean, you can do that today, and unlike any other age and time, it's wonderful to be alive today. It's groovy. I mean, the internet, but you can study and find out for yourself as a facts. And it depends what you look at. People want to argue and fight, and I'm too caught up in the intellectualism of it all, of the ideology of my own head, which is just to simply understand myself and function and survive this schizophrenic attack on my life at the age of 17 in 1975. Uh, so, so the fear of this nerve damage I knew about, learned in the 70s when I was still in Florida, and I knew about this, and but they'd locked me up and for talking about it, and it's retardedly crazy. I'm sorry, but that's not inappropriate. But I don't mean nothing. But it was just lame the way that some of the MDs, members of the AP, American Psychiatric Association, psychiatrists treated me when I would mention it. They'd lock me up, in the early days. So that really annoys me, even today, with them and the way my life went, history went, and the way society dealt with this. But so these drugs were invented about 1951. That caused this kind of major damage to the nervous system, extremities, hands and feet and face. And but more of my nervous system was coming back on. I felt this genuine smile at times, and but I'm not used to navigating these parts of my nervous system that are turned back on now because they're supposed to be permanent, but these drugs make it possible now. Medicines make it possible to turn it back, the nerves back on. How this is wonderfully, magically miraculous is all I can say. But I have a steadier grip now, but it's on my arms, but it's not into my hands yet, as you can see. But so the fear of this is what propelled the whole antipsychiatry treatment. I wanted no part in treatment whatsoever. Okay, this is what propelled the whole treatment of the 1987 attack of John Lennon by UFO transmigration of soul into my body. That's the stories in my book of how psychotic I got and how scrambled my brain got. You want original conspiracy theories? I got the original one there, 1990s, 87. But so I wanted to say the reason to understand this context of this, what happened to me over the history of my life. Okay, so the reason that I feared that it made me react this way, and to say that the National Security Agency administration or whatever, NSA, was Nazi Satanic America. Okay, I would pick up a phone and play on guitar. I dial the NSA up and set the phone upside down where they could hear me, and I dial a few numbers back from the main number so they would get an internet extension, and I'd play them on the guitar. Nazi Satanic America, Nazi Satanic America. How's your karma lately? Doot doot on the guitar, and then I'd hang up on them, So I'm laughing at how could this happen to me? I'd be that way, I mean, it's so absurd, Why would you? I'm not a radical, but and I didn't mean anything radical by it except the Tardive Dyskinesia, because I thought that's what John Lennon meant in his song "Nobody Told Me." You got Nazis in the basement, just behind the stairs. Nobody Told Me was the song. So I thought it was but because the reason for it though was that the average American would understand, because you're probably a gun owner, your trigger finger. If you burn the nerves out of your trigger finger and you move like that involuntarily, like I'm moving, and you have your hand on a trigger, your finger on a trigger, and you involuntarily pull it when you're drawing on somebody, breaking in or whatever, then what a legitimate reason, to use a gun. So you can't own a gun then. So for that reason, if you are competent to use it, otherwise, but I don't want no part of them. Myself, I'm secure a place where I can live without them. But that's one reason why I thought considered would be a Nazi takeover of America would be to burn the nerves out of the trigger fingers of all you gun owners, to stop an invasion, and to prevent or that you exist as a part to collectively stop an invasion of our country. I applaud you, righteous gun owners, lawful gun owners, for that reason. But that's not my job, though. My duty or whatever, my business being who I am. But you can see why, though, how my finger was shaking. That if that was on a trigger of a gun, you had involuntary movements like that, you'd have a severe problem. So this is why everybody should be concerned about these older antipsychotics and what they've done to people in my age bracket, more so, or anybody who's on them. Well, I was told, the neurologist and I discussed in 1985 that 300 milligrams of thorazine for as little as 3 weeks will cause this kind of nerve damage severely. And so I was on up to 800 milligrams a day for a year at a time. This is over a year at a time, I guess, that one, 77, 78. That year I worked the longest job I ever worked. But like I said, I'm on record as I was on thorazine and cogentin probably, and I worked, and it was all these days with all the medical research on pot. Nobody should say shit about that. excuse me, I didn't mean to use that four-letter word, uh, but but uh, but all the pot I smoked is what enabled me to work in those days. That year I was on Thorazine, but because other people say that you get knocked out, and I did get knocked out on it later when I didn't have enough pot in my system in the hospital, and they forced slip it to me. And this was verified by my rights advocate friend who's passed away. So that they used to they got caught putting Thorazine in coffee and Jello to put the ward to sleep, so they could just party on the food and cheese and good snacks and food for meant for the patients. And they thought it was funny when they got caught, you know. So yeah, I've been abused this way, but some of us have been, So how long is this video? 10 minutes. So anyways, so that's why I said Nazi Satanic America, man, was because of the Tardive Dyskinesia and the threat of it and being disarmed by the Nazis by having your trigger fingers burned away. If you try to hold that still and see it still moves. I'm not titrated all the way up to where I need to have control over my nerves. How they can magically turn its nerves back on after being burned away all these decades is just fantastically amazing. Thank you. Okay, so thank you. So this is just for anybody who cares, and not really a clinical thing, but that's why I did say Nazi Satanic America and burn flags during the time the Supreme Court ruled it was legal to burn flags. That was in 1993 or 4. Uh, so I'm sorry about that. I don't feel that. I do not feel that way on being who I am, which I am on all these medications. Many medications I take, and so don't tell me I don't need my medication, or you'll make the worst enemy out of me yet fastest yet. Thank you otherwise for your interest in why these conditions exist and how to treat and live with them. That's all this is about. Thank you for listening, watching. Thank you. Bye bye.